Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. We've recently had a great middleweight fight announcement for UFC 277 on July 30th. We are getting Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold, the former middleweight champion. And this is a fight that I thought would probably never happen. There were some rumors about it for a while. But, I honestly thought Luke Rockhold may never come back. There's been rumors about Luke Rockhold returning forever. So I wanted to make a video. I'm going to react to the fight, give you an early prediction, and then also I'm going to talk about the fact I truly believe that Luke Rockhold could be facing Israel Adesanya in 2022. Yes, you heard that right. I think Luke Rockhold could be fighting for the title by the end of this year. So first off, you have Luke Rockhold has been out since 2019. And a lot of people forget, Luke Rockhold went up to 205. He made his light heavyweight debut against Jan Blachowicz, UFC 239, and he was brutally KO'd by Jan Blachowicz. What a lot of people forget about this fight is people considered Jan Blachowicz an easy fight for Rockhold. And basically what the UFC was trying to set up was they were setting up a John Jones versus Luke Rockhold fight for the UFC light heavyweight title. Obviously, that didn't pan out. Obviously, Jan Blachowicz had a massive career resurgence. He knocked Luke Rockhold out brutally, and then Luke Rockhold decided to sit out for quite a while. Before that, he lost to Yoel Romero, brutally KO'd in that fight as well. Before that, he got a win over David Branch, a TKO win, which is crazy about Luke Rockhold is since becoming the champion in December of 2015, when he put a brutal beatdown on Chris Weidman to win the title, he's only won one fight. After that fight, he got KO'd by Michael Bisping in the title fight, in a short notice title fight. Then he beat David Branch, and then the other two fights I've already talked about. I didn't even realize it was that bad. To win one fight in the last 7 years, and it's against David Branch, and you've been brutally KO'd in 3 of your losses, it's not a good resume in the last few years, and Rockhold's getting up there in age. And now he's coming in and fighting Paulo Costa, number 4 ranked Paulo Costa. And then you look at Paulo Costa's resume, and it's a little bit better, but it's not all that much better. And I really believe this is a must-win for both guys. If Rockhold loses to Paulo Costa, I mean, he might as well stay retired at this point. He might as well retire again and just stay retired, because then he'll have lost, 4 out of his last 5. And if he loses to Costa, I think he probably gets finished, and it's just going to be a bad look. But Paulo Costa's not in a great situation himself. He's lost his last 2. His last fight, he came in, he missed weight. Apparently there was an injury of some sort, but missed weight. They moved it up an entire weight class for him against Marvin Vettori. One of the best fights of last year. So if you haven't seen that fight, make sure to go check it out. And then before that, he was inactive for a while. And then before that, he fought Israel Adesanya for the title. And I actually picked Paulo Costa to win that fight. Boy, was I wrong. Israel Adesanya went out there, put on a masterclass against Paulo Costa. Costa could not close the distance, and Israel Adesanya was able to TKO him in the second round. So Paulo Costa is now on a 2-fight losing streak. His last fight, he missed weight, so that didn't look good. And now if he loses to a guy like Luke Rockhold, who's been sitting on the sidelines for a while, 37 years old, it's not going to be a good look for Paulo Costa. I think it's less of a dire situation for Paulo Costa than it is Luke Rockhold, but still not a good look. And if you look at Paulo Costa's resume, I mean, I talk about people's resumes all the time. He has a terrible resume. His best win is Yoel Romero, which is a solid win. A lot of people thought that Yoel Romero won that fight, myself included, but it was a very close fight, a robbery by no means. And that was his last win, August of 2019. It's been almost 3 years since Paulo Costa has got his hand raised inside the octagon. Then you start looking down his resume. It is awful. Johnny Hendricks, Uriah Hall, those are the best names on Paulo Costa's resume. It just looks terrible, and I think both these guys need a solid win. And if Paulo Costa can go out there, and even people are going to kind of try to trash the win if he does beat Luke Rockhold, say he doesn't have a chin, say, he's been retired for the last 3 years, blah, blah, blah. But if Costa can go out there and beat a former champion like Luke Rockhold in his return to middleweight, which I'm most interested in to see him come back to middleweight instead of light heavyweight, then Paulo Costa could be right back in the mix for the middleweight title as well, considering that Israel Adesanya has borderline cleaned out the division. There's a couple guys which we'll talk about in a minute, but Paulo Costa puts his name right back in the conversation, especially if he's able to make weight for this fight. So as far as the way I see this fight going down, I could see it going so many ways, honestly. I could see Paulo Costa KOing Luke Rockhold, But there's like a myth with Paulo Costa. A lot of people think that Paulo Costa has some crazy one-punch KO power. That's not really Costa. He has hard punches, but he's not like an Anthony Rumble Johnson. He's more of a volume guy, and people forget that because Costa has such a great physique. They think he's some huge power puncher. He's not that. But Luke Rockhold, I do not trust his chin. I wonder if with the time off, maybe it's a little bit better, but it's hard to say. He could come out, it could be completely a glass jaw, just like it's always been. And if Costa clips him, I find it hard to believe that Rockhold can survive that. But a lot of people forget because they look at Luke Rockhold's striking defense deficiencies, and they forget that Rockhold is a very good striker. He's able to stay on the outside, rip the body kicks, has good leg kicks. And if Rockhold gets you down, he has some of the best top game in all the UFC and some of the best top jiu-jitsu game in all the UFC. And I really believe one of the most compelling matchups would be Luke Rockhold in his prime versus Israel Adesanya, because to beat Israel Adesanya, the best path to victory to beat Adesanya, to take the title from him, is to take him down and control him on the ground. But nobody's really been able to do that. As far as this fight playing out, I really have a hard time predicting this fight. I'm going to give you an early prediction. I might switch it back and forth before we actually get to UFC 277. I am going to go Paulo Costa right now just because I don't trust Rockhold's jaw. But I could see Rockhold staying on the outside and picking Costa apart. I could also see Rockhold being able to take him down and control him on the ground. I don't know where Costa's jiu-jitsu is at and his defensive jiu-jitsu is at. And Rockhold has nasty top game. Look what he did to Chris Weidman, who has great jiu-jitsu and great wrestling himself, and Rockhold was able to dominate him. But that is a Rockhold of 7 years ago. So I think the age is a factor, the chin is a factor. Costa's younger, stronger, bigger, and I think that he's probably going to clip him and put him out, even though Costa doesn't have that one-punch KO power. But let's say Luke Rockhold wins this fight, and let's say he wins it impressively. You look at the middleweight division, Israel Adesanya is on his way to clean it out. If he beats Jared Cannonier, there's only 2 other guys right now in the immediate future that could potentially fight for a belt. And that is the winner between Sean Strickland and Alex Pereira. And if Alex Pereira wins, I think most likely he's next in line for Israel Adesanya because they have that kickboxing history. Alex Pereira has 2 wins over Israel Adesanya, 1 being a knockout. But let's say Sean Strickland wins, and it's a typical boring Sean Strickland performance. You start to look at the resume of Sean Strickland and the wins. His best win would probably be Alex Pereira. I mean, Jack Hermansson's an okay win. That was his most recent win. I truly believe if Sean Strickland beats Alex Pereira and Luke Rockhold beats Paulo Costa, I think probably the end of this year we will see Israel Adesanya defending his middleweight title against Luke Rockhold. He's a former champion. He has name value. If he comes in and beats a top 5 guy and he does it impressively, let's say he takes Costa down, controls him on the ground and beats him up on the ground and finishes him or submits him, I think the UFC will say, let's give Luke Rockhold a title shot against Israel Adesanya because there's really no one else. Adesanya has 2 wins over Whitaker. I don't think the UFC wants to do the trilogy. I don't think a lot of fans want to see the trilogy, especially after the rematch wasn't particularly exciting. He beat Vettori twice. Not the most impressive performance, not super competitive either, though. The Whitaker second fight was very competitive. But the second Vettori fight, the first Vettori fight between Adesanya and Vettori was very competitive. The second fight was not. So he's really, and then if he beats Jared Cannonier and he already has the win over Costa and Costa would have just lost to Rockhold. If Rockhold wins and Pereira loses, we will see Israel Adesanya versus Luke Rockhold. And I know we have some future contenders making their way up the ranks right now. Andre Muniz, Nasruddin Imavov. But I don't think they're close to a title shot. They need a couple more wins before they even become in the conversation. Also, maybe Sean Strickland could if he gets a big win over Alex Pereira at UFC 276, we could see a potential Israel Adesanya-Sean Strickland matchup. And it's ironic because we were actually supposed to see Rockhold versus Strickland at UFC 268 in November of last year, but Rockhold had to pull out with an injury. Then I had my doubts if we would ever see him return to MMA. But now he's fighting Costa. I think if Rockhold loses to Costa, he probably retires. He does not fight anymore. But if he beats Costa, and most importantly, he does it impressively, we will see Adesanya Rockhold, which if Rockhold looks even close to what he used to look like, which I have my doubts about. Obviously, I picked Costa because of Rockhold's glass jaw. That'll be an interesting matchup, and I think a lot of people will want to see it because people think the path to beat Adesanya is to take him down and control him on the ground, and Rockhold is very, very good at that. So let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.